So let's dive into a Greek myth that pretty much flips everything we think we know about heroes, power, and identity completely on its head. This is the story of a warrior who was literally immune to weapons, a hero who was born a woman. This is the incredible myth of Caeneus.
Okay, just think about this for a second. What if a god offered you one single wish? What would you ask for? Riches? Power? What if you asked for something that nobody else has? What if you asked to become truly, completely invincible? Well, for the hero of our story today, that wish actually came true. They became a warrior who couldn't be touched by a sword or a spear. But like with all the great myths, this incredible power came from incredible pain, and it was going to lead to a truly unbelievable ending.
To really understand the hero Caeneus, we've got to go back. Back to before he was a celebrated hero, or even before he was a man. We start with a young princess named Caenis. Our story kicks off in Thessaly, in ancient Greece. We meet Caenis, a princess of the Lapith people. And the ancient poets, well, they all say the same thing. She was so beautiful that her fame was known far and wide, catching the eye of pretty much everyone, mortals and gods alike. But here's the thing about Caeneus. She was not about to be defined by her beauty, not at all. She was fiercely independent. Sure, countless suitors wanted to marry her, but she turned down every single one of them. She really valued her own freedom, her autonomy, and preferred walking alone on the shore to being trapped in a marriage. And it was on one of those lonely shores that her entire life was violently changed forever by an encounter with a god. An encounter that would lead to a wish that completely reshaped her destiny. This is the moment that changes absolutely everything. The poet Ovid tells us that the sea god Poseidon assaults Caenis on a deserted beach, and afterward he offers her one wish. Now, she doesn't ask for revenge, she doesn't ask for gold. Her wish is a direct, powerful response to what she just endured. She asks to become a man so that she can never be harmed in that way ever again. Poseidon grants it, and he even throws in a gift of his own, impenetrable skin. Ovid's description of this moment is just wow. It's so powerful. He writes that her voice actually deepened into a man's tone while she was still speaking the words. The change wasn't slow or gradual, it was instant, a total shift in her being, right then and there. She was no longer Caenis, she was now the man known as Caeneus. So with this new form and this incredible new power, a legendary hero was born. The life of Caenis was over, and the heroic age of Caeneus had just begun. And Caeneus did not waste any time. He jumped right into the hero life and quickly became one of the greats of his time. We're talking sailing with Jason and the Argonauts, hunting the monstrous Caledonian boar. He eventually became king of his people. He even got married and had a son, fully stepping into this new life as a powerful man and a warrior. I mean, that invulnerability, that was his whole deal. It was legendary. It was absolute. Other heroes, they had magic armor or amazing skill, but Caeneus himself was the armor. Spears would just shatter against his skin. Swords would go blunt. Arrows, they'd just bounce right off. In an age of heroes, he was simply on another level. But you know how it goes with Greek myths, right? When you have that much power, something's gotta give. And that something is almost always a fatal flaw. In this case, it was hubris, that classic Greek idea of just dangerous, over-the-top pride, the kind of arrogance that really, really ticks off the gods. And Caeneus, wow, his hubris was a real spectacle. He literally plants his own spear in the middle of the town square and demands that his people worship it, and by extension, worship him instead of the gods on Olympus. I mean, that is a direct challenge, a massive act of arrogance that gets the attention of the king of the gods, Zeus. And Zeus was not about to let that slide. So, Zeus's anger sets the stage for one of the most famous battles in all of mythology, the Centauromachy, the huge war between the Lapiths and the Centaurs. And it would be right here that the invulnerable hero would finally meet his very strange end. The whole thing blows up at a wedding feast. The Centaurs, the half-man, half-horse creatures, they get drunk and violent and try to carry off the bride and other women. Caeneus, being the king and the toughest warrior there, obviously leaps right into the fight to protect his people. And in the middle of all this chaos, Caeneus is just an absolute force of nature, unstoppable. The Centaurs are throwing everything they have at him. Nothing works. Their weapons are completely useless. He's just cutting through their ranks, basically a one-man army who cannot be hurt.
But the Centaurs, they weren't just brutes. They were clever. They realized, okay, we can't cut this guy, we can't pierce him. So they had to change their whole strategy. If you can't defeat an enemy with your weapons, you have to find another way. So they turned to the only weapon they had left, the raw, crushing weight of the forest itself.
They didn't kill him with a weapon. They literally just overwhelmed him. They ripped massive pine trees out of the ground, heaved giant boulders, and just piled them on top of Caeneus. They used tree trunks like hammers to beat him into the earth. He wasn't stabbed or cut. He was crushed and suffocated under a man-made mountain. A brutal, bizarre end for a hero who couldn't be wounded.
So, what happens after a death like that? Well, the myth kind of splits here. We don't get one clear answer. In Ovid's telling of the story, as Caeneus dies, this beautiful golden bird flies out from under the pile of rocks and trees, his spirit transformed one last time. But then you have Virgil's version, where the hero Aeneas sees him in the underworld, and he's been turned back into the woman, Caenis. Two totally different fates, one of escape and freedom, the other of being forced back into his old form.
So why are we still talking about this story thousands of years later? Well, it's because the myth of Caeneus has taken on this whole new life, and its themes are resonating so powerfully with us today. This is so much more than just an ancient action story. It's this deep, profound look at what it means to feel safe, what it means to have power, and how we define who we are when faced with trauma and what society expects of us.
When people look at this myth now, they see all sorts of things. For some, it's a really sharp commentary on a world where a woman felt she had to literally become a man just to be safe. For others, it's seen as this incredibly early gender-affirming story. I mean, a god respects someone's wish to have a different form. And scholars love to point out how Ovid, the writer, immediately switches his grammar from she to he. But maybe above all else, it's a timeless story about trauma and the desperate things we'll do to find safety. So who was Caeneus, really? Was he a hero, defined by his incredible strength? A victim, defined by his trauma? Or a timeless symbol of transformation? You know, maybe the real enduring power of this myth is that it doesn't give us an easy answer. It just holds up a mirror and reflects our own complicated questions about who we are.